Hi, everybody. I thought I'd make a list of the things I see people do and that happen to people in retirement that really start causing problems. So, the goal is always to have a healthy, wonderful retirement. And so, I want to talk about these key points. And the first one is neglecting health. I have seen plenty of people, unfortunately, neglect their health and things not end well. So, strangely, eye health, foot health, hearing, teeth, these are all things that doctors say can cause some serious problems. I've got several doctors as clients, and those are things that they tell me we got to watch out for, especially the older you get. And then the obvious ones, things like your heart health and lung health and those kinds of things. There's scans for this stuff now. But I also want to talk about diet and alcohol because those can be issues as well. I want to be as healthy as long as I can. I don't want to be unhealthy in retirement. And so I've changed my eating habits, realizing what I've done to myself in my past. And those clients that are leading the more successful retirements are the ones that are getting exercise, that don't overdo it with alcohol, that are eating well. And that's what I want to model myself after because I want to enjoy retirement. I want to enjoy the later years of life. So don't neglect your health. Get the scans, see the doctors, ask the questions, and try to take care of yourself and learn that lesson as soon as possible as well. Number two, understanding hydration. Now, this may sound weird, but I live in Arizona and hydration is a big issue here. I actually got called into the hospital in the middle of night more than 10 times for my grandfather. And every time I got there, he was perfectly fine after a saline bag, after they hydrated him. And so we have to understand that dehydration leads to cognitive issues. It's very obvious and very apparent. So please understand the importance of hydrating and drinking water. Okay, so we got those out of the way. Let's make sure we're getting some exercise. Do something active every day. I don't care if it's just walking, a little yoga, a little stretching, a little whatever. But the reality is we need to stay active. We need to keep the joints moving, and that's going to lead to a longer, more successful retirement. Skimp on sleeping. Believe it or not, lack of sleep is showing up in a lot of the reasons for late life issues. So cognitive issues, significant correlation to bad sleep habits. So keep an eye on the sleeping. Sleep apnea is a big issue out there as well. And then mental stimulation. I have a mother-in-law with Alzheimer's. It's a topic of conversation constantly. So we have to understand that we have to challenge ourselves constantly. And this goes for those people that have just this same routine every single day. Try to force yourself to break that routine. Your brain needs that, and that's very important that we understand that. Try to make sure and look, you can do a crossword puzzle every single day, and that just becomes a habit and your brain doesn't have to work very hard. That's why I say change those habits. Exercise that brain, stimulate that brain, live a curious life out there. Next one is ignoring social connections. Look, at most of my times, I'm antisocial. So this is something I will definitely have to pay attention to in my retirement years. The hardest part for people is leaving work and going off into retirement. And some people think, why is that hard? Well, money is sometimes a worry. How are you going to pay for bills? All those kinds of things. But the big thing is you're leaving the importance of your life behind, right? People are their work in a lot of cases, especially workaholics, especially successful people in their careers. Their friends are in their workplace. Their self sense of purpose is in their workplace. So ignoring social connections can be an issue because for a lot of people, they leave work and they lose half their social connections. And for some people, it's even more. Those workaholics, those successful people working 80, 100-hour weeks. Yeah, that's usually 90% of their social connections, other than maybe the spouse and family at home. So please be careful about this. You need that self sense of purpose. You need to be there to help each other. And that's a huge part. I see a lot of lonely single people out there that don't have friends to lean on. They don't have a social network around them. And when you get older, that becomes more and more of a problem. So don't ignore those social connections. They become incredibly important, increasingly the older you get. Waiting for others to reach out. Oh, fights with family, all those kinds of wonderful things. Look, you have less time to wait than they do, most likely. So please, break down those barriers, make those connections, and don't sit around waiting for other people to call you. Asking for help, right? Look, it can't be easy. I understand. Sometimes we don't want to ask for help. Sometimes we want to do things ourselves. Sometimes it's just flat out in our nature. I always try to fix things myself first, and sometimes I just need to ask for help. So we have to look at that in all aspects of our life. The older we get, we do need help, and knowing that and having humility becomes very important later in life. Neglect for end of life planning. Look, nobody likes to think about end of life. You guys all should have wills or trusts. It's either a will-based plan or a trust-based plan. I don't care how old you are. If you've ever lost somebody that didn't have documentation, that owned a house, or you had some money at all, it is an enormous mess if you leave that behind without that documentation. Power of attorneys. If my mother-in-law didn't have power of attorneys when she got Alzheimer's, that would have been a huge mess and a huge problem. She had several pieces of real estate that we had to deal with, lots of banking we had to deal with. It would have been a nightmare. Living will. Pull the plug, don't pull the plug. That's a document that you have to make decisions on, so your heirs know how to handle things when you're not able to make decisions for yourself. List of accounts. Let whoever's in charge after you know where your stuff is, because the hunting for all your stuff is not fun. I've had years later discovering accounts still. So we have to make sure that we're organized. I never, never, never recommend having your money in 90 different places. I see it over and over and over again. That's not diversification. You can have all your money at Schwab or Fidelity or Edward Jones or wherever. Diversification is the difference in investments, not where the money is held. You don't need 10 bank accounts. You don't need 30 investment accounts. So consolidate and organize that stuff and have a good list of where all your stuff is, and make sure those heirs know where that list is. Passwords can be very helpful, especially for a spouse. Especially for a spouse. If you leave a spouse behind and they got to go into your banking app and pay bills, they got to know how to do that, and they got to know where your passwords are. So think through those things. Make sure there's the list of the accounts and passwords. Funeral wishes. At least something in writing that tells people what your wishes actually are, if you have any. Okay. Downsize your stuff. I cannot tell you the second biggest burden on heirs is a house full of stuff. I unfortunately had to go into my mother-in-law's house and help clean that out. We've had a couple of clients that we were involved in helping clean out that house because of no heirs and no social network. We were the only ones there that were there that could help out. The reality is that if you have unopened mail from 25 years ago in boxes in your garage, that's a big mess, and it's an enormous burden for those heirs to have to go through and clean out, especially after they lost a loved one. So as you go through life, start downsizing the stuff that isn't important anymore. And there's plenty of other stuff as examples for this. So end of life planning is not just what am I going to do for a funeral, or do I have my documents in place? There's a lot more than that. Be considerate to those heirs. Most people don't want to leave a mess for their heirs. And that is really what we're talking about here. Ignoring long-term care. So that's one of the topics I'm teaching this month. I do that topic in full form class formation every single year. And so I am a huge advocate of being proactive. Okay, everyone is in a different situation. I am not talking about going and buying a product. I am talking about if you had to go to long-term care, what does your area look like? Where would you prefer to go when those heirs step in and say it's time? Because you're not going to have that control at that point. So be proactive when you're healthy enough and go look at your neighborhood and where you want to be and make sure those wishes are known. Find out what it costs and how are you going to pay for it. For a lot of people, you self-insure, but just don't realize it. You own your house free and clear. That's bigger than most long-term care policies. The other thing everyone seems to forget is that your income doesn't stop. And if you're in long-term care, real long-term care, like you can't care for yourself, you have no other bills. You're not going on vacations anymore. You're not going to the salon or golfing or wherever. You're not doing those things anymore. So your income can be used to pay those bills. You don't need a product or the equity in your house to pay all of it. You still have Social Security. If you're lucky enough, you have a pension on top of that. You have other assets. You have other ways to pay for it. So make sure that you don't forget your income doesn't stop. And make sure you remember that your house is an enormous asset that will help pay for long-term care as well. Okay, and then who's going to be there to support that transition? It's the other thing that I want everybody to think about. Okay. All right, then finances, the yin and the yang. Here we go. Look at this. I see way too many people worry too much about their finances and die with millions of dollars. Irrational fear. Okay, it's good to have a good advisor that will actually talk you into spending some of this money and help you feel more and more comfortable with your money. For people that worry and worry and worry and worry, it's good to have a voice of reason. Okay, a good advisor should be wonderful at that. Honestly, I spend half my time psychoanalyzing our clients. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. And the reality is that we should be able to coach you into feeling more comfortable. And if you choose to only come in once a year and you're increase that anxiety, then start coming in more often, start talking more often. And then the other one is not paying attention to finances at all, right? I completely oblivious to it. Well, okay, that's understandable to a certain extent. Maybe you led a life where you never actually had to worry about money. You made plenty of money, but maybe the spouse that took care of the money passed away and now you're thrown into being in charge. And I've seen plenty of people choose to not deal with it. You have to. We have to understand our finances. I have to, make sure my mother understands the finances in case my father passes away. She doesn't even know how to get into the banking app. Got to make sure that we're paying attention to these finances. And then the last one is fraud. Fraud, just absolute scams and fraud everywhere out there. Please, please don't fall victim to this. You have your guard up every time you answer the phone. You're very careful on the internet. We have to know this is coming. I've seen extremely smart people get hooked in to terrible scams. And then they have lawyers calling them saying, hey, we'll help you recover your money. Just pay us some more money. And it just continues and gets worse and worse and worse. So please be very careful about the fraud and scams that are going on out there, especially in the senior network, in the retirees world. You're targeted. It is just a reality. So we have to be careful about that. And I've got lots of videos on different scams. Every year they put out the top scams, and I try to make the videos on all of those scams. So check out the YouTube page. There's lots of videos on every single topic out there. All right, hopefully that helps. That's just an overview of things that I see really spiral out of control in retirement for some people, and I wanted to go through those things. I like learning from our clients. I want to have a successful retirement, and I want everybody to have a successful retirement. So let's learn from the ones that are doing it right. If you want an appointment with me, it's real easy, yourinvestmentcounselor.com. You can schedule a 30-minute meet and greet or any other form of appointment with me as well. We do full form classes. Like I said, this month is a long-term care topic. fpfeaz.org is the website to go find those full classes. And then our 800 number right there. If you haven't visited the full page, like this, subscribe, go back to our full channel at YouTube. It is a wonderful channel and has tons of information on there on every topic. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week.